It's been over 13 years since Libya's former leader Muammar Gaddafi was overthrown and killed by his own people. Despite this, his name and lavish lifestyle still capture the curiosity of many. Gaddafi was always surrounded by beautiful female bodyguards, but there was another figure in his life who stayed out of the public eye: his wife, Safia Farkash. For over 40 years, she quietly endured her husband's numerous affairs. But what happened to her after his death? Where is she now? And what do we really know about the women who guarded Gaddafi and their true roles in his life? Muammar Gaddafi ruled Libya for 42 years, from 1969 until 2011. He was a man of power and contradiction, feared and admired. Known as a dictator, he tolerated no competition, and he made sure the spotlight always stayed on him. His image was carefully crafted. Though he was cruel and ruthless, his charisma helped him maintain control for decades. Under his rule, no one in Libya could outshine him. He built a cult-like image around himself. Born into a Bedouin family, Gaddafi never lost touch with his roots. One of his most unusual habits was his insistence on living in a tent, no matter where he went, even when visiting other countries. He would bring his tent with him, pitching it in places like the gardens of the Élysée Palace in France or a park in Rome. It was a statement, showing the world that he hadn't abandoned his heritage. Gaddafi's wardrobe matched his eccentric style. He often wore colorful robes with elaborate patterns, military-style uniforms adorned with medals, even though he hadn't earned them, and traditional African or royal-inspired attire. For Gaddafi, fashion wasn't just about looking good. It was about staying in the spotlight and keeping up his larger-than-life image. But while he enjoyed being the center of attention, his leadership came at a cost. He ruthlessly crushed any opposition, ensuring no one could challenge his power. Despite this, his charisma and dominance kept him in control even as his people suffered under his rule. One of Gaddafi's most striking habits was his reliance on women for his personal security. Known as the Amazonian Guard, these young, beautiful women were by his side at all times, trained rigorously and dressed to impress. While many speculated about their roles, assuming some may have been more than just bodyguards, there was one woman who stood quietly in the background: his wife Safia Farkash. Unlike the glamorous guards, Safia lived out of the public eye, devoted to raising their children and supporting her husband in silence for more than 40 years. Gaddafi was famous for his countless affairs, yet he remained married to Safia, who was often absent from the public eye. Rarely seen at official events or accompanying him on international trips, Safia's life has remained a mystery. Few photographs of her with Gaddafi exist, and the ones that do only surfaced after Gaddafi was overthrown. These rare photos suggest that Safia preferred staying in the shadows, avoiding the attention Gaddafi sought so badly. Her loyalty to him, even through his affairs, raises questions. How did she endure such a life? Was it love, duty, or a mix of both? Muammar Gaddafi's first marriage, in 1969, ended quickly. He married his second wife, Safia Farkash, in 1970, after meeting her while he was hospitalized for appendicitis. Safia, a nurse, tended to him during his stay, and Gaddafi later claimed it was love at first sight. They married soon after, and their relationship lasted for over 4 decades. While her origins are unclear, some believe Safia had Croatian or Hungarian roots, while others insist she was from Libya. Regardless of her heritage, Safia became an essential part of Gaddafi's personal life. They had 7 children together and remained married until his death. During his rule, Gaddafi's children played a significant role, but their extravagant lifestyles often drew criticism. One of his sons, Saif al-Islam, was seen as a possible successor to Gaddafi. Highly educated and well-connected, Saif tried to present himself as a reformer, but his reputation was tarnished by corruption and his role in suppressing the 2011 uprising. Another son, Hannibal, became infamous for his aggressive behavior and scandals, while Mu'tasim held an influential military position. Despite Gaddafi's obsession with beautiful women and his many affairs, Safia stayed by his side. Behind the scenes, Safia was more than just a supportive wife. She was a powerful and wealthy woman. She owned a private airline, Burak Air, and even monopolized the transport of Libyan pilgrims. Some estimates say her fortune reached up to $30 billion. Although she preferred a quiet life, Safia did make occasional public appearances, like attending her husband's Revolution anniversary celebrations or the graduation of female police students. But these moments were rare and always carefully managed. In 2008, she was elected vice president of the African First Ladies Organization, though she never actively participated. As the wife of Gaddafi, Safia tolerated her husband's infidelities for the sake of wealth and status. By the 1980s, Gaddafi's affairs were openly known, and his personal bodyguards, the Amazonian Guard, were often in the spotlight. These women were trained to protect him, and Gaddafi boasted that women were more trustworthy than men. But their loyalty to him often went beyond their professional duties, with some even sacrificing their lives for him. However, not all was as it seemed. Behind the scenes, Gaddafi's relationships with these women were not just about protection. Many were subjected to his inappropriate behavior. Reports from those who lived in his inner circle revealed that Gaddafi's treatment of these women was cruel and exploitative. Some of the women in his entourage were not bodyguards at all. They were simply his lovers, dressed in military uniforms to create the illusion of a strong female-led regime. Despite the public image of gender equality, the reality for these women was much darker. Gaddafi's obsession with young women often led to abuse and exploitation. Some of his bodyguards and lovers were recruited through an elaborate system, and many women entered his inner circle with hopes of fame or wealth, only to find themselves trapped in a nightmare. As Gaddafi's power grew, so did his ability to indulge his every whim. He often demanded women from influential families, humiliating aristocrats and displaying his dominance. Gaddafi's obsession with women extended to international diplomacy, where he would lavish foreign guests with gifts in exchange for private meetings. His actions created countless diplomatic incidents and painted him as a tyrant who treated women as objects to satisfy his ego. Gaddafi's reign ended violently in 2011 when his own people rose against him. His family scattered, some fleeing to foreign countries, while others were killed. Safia, who had remained loyal through it all, was eventually forced to leave Libya as the country plunged into chaos. She fled with her surviving children to Algeria and later found refuge in Oman, where she was granted political asylum. Today, Safia's life remains shrouded in mystery. After spending decades in the shadow of one of the world's most infamous leaders, she now lives quietly, far from the luxury and power she once enjoyed. Although there were rumors about her whereabouts, her exact location remains uncertain. As of 2024, the United Nations lifted travel restrictions on her, but her frozen assets mean she can't access the wealth she once controlled. Safia Farkash's life is full of contradictions. She was the wife of a man whose name became synonymous with tyranny, yet she spent much of her life avoiding the spotlight. Now in her 70s, she lives in obscurity, far from the grand life she once led. Safia remains an enigma, a woman who held unimaginable power, only to see it all slip away. Her story is one of loyalty, secrecy, and survival.